today what I'll be doing is we'll be doing class diagram, and along with the class diagram we'll be doing the object diagrams. So far, in terms of object-oriented programming, we have learned about classes and the objects, right? So basically, objects are in terms of classes. Class is a definition, a template, and you can also call it as a cookie cutter for all objects belonging to that class. And basically, a class is not a collection of objects, right? I just mentioned something about this cookie cutter. So it's like this. You know, when you are making cookies or something, you have to have some kind of you need to have some kind of actual and in order to make these cookies, you need to have a cookie cutter. And basically, you have this flour mixture and everything. You just pour it into that particular mold, and then it will be like finished within maybe like if you put it into oven, it will be baked within 30 minutes, right? So that's how it is happening. So this class actually acts as a template or cookie cutter for all the objects belonging to that class, and it's not a collection of objects. So from a class, we can basically derive many objects as per your need. You can customize the whatever the according to your need. You can have millions of objects, but if you combine, right? If you combine all these objects together, it will not make a class. That is the thing, right? So this is how it is happening. So in terms of UML class diagrams, what we are doing is we are just representing all these classes in this kind of tabular form, and we just need to make the relationship in between these classes. That's the only thing that we are doing, right? If you are given some kind of case study, so you have to first thing that you need to derive, you need to identify the exact classes or the objects that you are going to instantiate, right? Objects you need to derive that. So after that, you need to fill this kind of a table, right? Following that, what you're going to need is you have to make the relationship between these classes. That's the only thing that you need to do, right? So this is the notation for the class. So on the top of the class, you can see it's like a table caption. You have the class name of the class, and on the other hand, on the top of that, you have this stereotype entity keyword and that the guy. So I don't mind. And here you have the, if it is object-oriented programming, I told you every class has some class is a template. Basically, they do have these instant variables, or you call it properties. And on the other hand, these are called, there are some methods, right? So this is called the instance variable in that particular belonging to that particular object, name, date of birth, and these all are method or the operations that you can invoke upon that particular object that you will be create from this class, right? And here you have name and colon followed by the type of the data. Name maybe if it is a if it is Java programming, it will be a string. Date of birth, it can be a date type, or otherwise it can also be a string. Likewise that. And here you have this notation, maybe like a deduction, and this is the plus mark, and that have a separate meaning. So this is the class name, this is the attribute of the class, and this is basically the operation that you can invoke upon the objects that you will be creating from this particular class. Methods or the operations, right? So the how to identify the class. So I'll be quickly going through this. Noun analysis of the text within the use cases reveal the first cut of the list of classes. Other document problem statement can be inspected by the nouns. These nouns represent entities in problem space which are potential classes. During the analysis, these classes are stereotyped as they are all within problem space. Attributes and responsibilities are added to these classes, but only at the analysis level. So the only thing that you need to get is, when you have a case study, just go to the case study and there are some nouns that you can identify, right? Sinhalen kiyana noun pada. So you have to identify this noun as, you just need to analyze further. Eka hariyatama class එකක් විදිහට entity එකක් විදිහට ගන්නවද කියලා. So all these, most of the nouns in that particular case study taken as the class, right? That's the summary. Right. The visibility of the class. So before all these methods and the properties, you can see, like there was a symbol notation, right? Maybe like the plus mark, like addition, deduction, then you have this hash symbols, and you have this notation, right? So this implies to the visibility of the class, right? Even during your lecture and also during the practical, I think Ashish already have done this. She and also me, I have stated about the access modifiers, right? Access modifier. So plus refers to the public, this deduction mark, it refers to the private, this is for the protected, and this is for the package. So the description, it says this attribute of the operation is visible to the all entities. So in terms of object-oriented programming, if you are making a one particular instant variable as public, that means that whenever you are creating the object, the method in the same class and also from the other class, from the outer package, they can access to that particular public properties. If it is private means, so then we have this encapsulation concept, that means like the whatever the method inside that particular class can access to the private properties, right? The attribute operation is private and cannot be directly accessed by the outside entities, and that's why you need to have the public set and get methods. So the protected package, these things are actually not common. Maybe the common, most common thing is that we are using this. Protected the attribute operation is available only to the object who is descendant. So if you have some kind of property instant variable declared with the protected keyword, a method in the same class can access to that particular variable. Also through the inheritance, the child class can access to the superclass protected variables. And in terms of package, I think I have done that example. Only the objects in that package can use the attribute. They can package use one. So these things are not common, but these two, public and private, these are the most common one. And these are the notations that you have to remember when you are making the class diagram, right? So that tabular format, that is essential. Method attributes තියෙන්නත් පුළුවන්, මෙතන methods තියෙන්නත් පුළුවන්, right? නැත්නම් මෙතන නම විතරක් තිබ්බත් ඒ ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ, right? So this is the class with the T compartments. That means compartment name, the attributes, and the operations of the methods, right? And this is for the, this is to represent the inheritance concept, and this is to represent the association, and this is to represent the aggregation. So you can see over there, there's one example, a class known as doctor, and basically if it is a person, you know, if it is an employee, if it is a student, you have a unique identifier, right? That always comes with doctor ID. And other thing is, it is not visible, and there's a public method. You can plus method with a public get doctor details, right? So you can make any assumption whenever it is necessary. And this is association. May association you can represent the symbol. Like you can represent the what is the exact relationship in between these classes. That means from that particular class, if that particular object is, how many times the particular object of this one particular class associated with the object of the other class. That is called by this multiplicity. So that can be represented by 0 to many, 1 to many. So, and this is how you represent the node, right? So this is called the relationship එකට කියන එක. With how many objects that you are associating, we call it by the multiplicity. And right, so just have a look on this diagram. ඉතින් මුලින්ම මේ diagram එක බලන්න before I'm going to ask questions. How many classes are there? What classes are there? Yes, yes. How many classes? How many classes? So this is the, yes, he is correct. This is the aggregation relationship, right? May relationship you can represent in another form. You call it composition, right? And here, this relationship is what? Yes, that relationship when the maker. Inheritance, right? That means E is a relationship. Make inheritance, so I mean like I'll be not telling again, but make a so right. Hospital, you can see the aggregation. Aggregation explain right? If you take a one hospital, I mean like basically hospital has a department, right? It can has a relationship. Hospital has a department. Faculty has a department. So that can be represented by this aggregation. Normally, tani single line association kya. Relationship class relationship we call it association. And the special form of association, aggregation, right? That means like this particular class has this one. That means there's some kind of ownership. They can faculty, a department, and that relationship is with V, a relationship in V. So that means hospital has a department. So that's why we have this diamond notation. Aggregation. And otherwise normal association කියන්නේ තනි line එක කියන්නේ ඒ class එක and class එක අතර there's a relationship, maybe like users, employees, like lecturer, they have the salary, that kind of relationship, right? Department, basically the users, or ඔයගොල්ලන්ට කියන්න පුළුවන් employees, doctor, right? So here you have a 1 and 1 followed by dot දෙකක් කියලා asterisk mark, and here we have 1 to 4 and on the other side 1 to many, right? That denotes the multiplicity. ඒ කියන්නේ if you take a one hospital, right? මේ හොඳට කියලා දෙන්න මතක තියාගන්න. If you take a one hospital, how many departments that a one particular hospital has? Wow. Yes. Minimum department. Minimum. I'm asking the minimum one. At least one hospital can have one department, right? And there could be many departments. So whenever you are doing the whenever you are calculating that multiplicity, hospital has a department, right? So the one hospital can have at least one, and it will lead up to many departments, right? So at the end of this association, you will be represented by this multiplicity, 1 to many කියලා කියන්නේ. So if it is 0 to many, 0 to many නම් මෙහෙම පස්සේ දෙකක් තියලා you need to use this asterisk mark. Or otherwise if it is 1 to many, ඒ කියන්නේ 1 එකෙන් පස්සේ දෙකක් තියලා you have to represent by this. Or otherwise you can say, you can directly say hospital can have only one department. එහෙම කියලා කෙලින්ම කියන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වෙලාවට you have to use එක. Otherwise minimum ගානක් නැත්නම් ඔයාලා කියන්න පුළුවන් many using this asterisk mark. Right? But you guys have to, there's another notation in ER diagram or something. It's called the cardinal demand. Right? So that's the same thing. Not the same thing, sorry. Not the same thing. This is a bit different. So that's how you represent. And if you take from the department perspective, the department at least one department need to be attached with the one hospital, right? එක department එකක් ගත්තා. So at the end of this association night, you will be represented by this particular number. එක department එකක් තියෙන්න ඕන. Sorry, එක department එකකට එක hospital එකක් අරගෙන ගන්න තියෙන්න ඕන කියන එක, right? And on the other hand, so the department with the doctors, right? One department can have, if you take a one instance of that particular class, 1 to, ඒ කියන්නේ අඳුම ගන්න එක ડોක්ටර් කෙනෙක්වත් ඉන්න ඕන. හැබැයි in rare scenarios there are like instances there are no doctors, 1 to many doctors, right? And on the other hand, here the one doctor can attach to 1 to 4 department. ඒ කියන්නේ explicitly මම limit එකක් දෙනවා 1 to 4. ඔයාලට කියන්න පුළුවන් maybe 1 to 2, 1 to 4 කියලා මම explicitly ඒක limit එකක් දෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ සමහර doctors වෙන්න maybe physicians ලා gynecologist ලා they will be overlooking some other department as well. When the full one, theoretically, so that's how, right? And remember, how you name it, every time, you need to think from the one task perspective, it will lead to the other side of that particular association relationship, right? And on the other hand, in terms of department, so inheritance, that means like, in terms of Java inheritance, you have the base class or the super class, and basically through the inheritance, the super properties of the properties and the methods of the super class are inherited by this subclasses. Surgical, consultation, dentistry department. There are 3 departments, right? So this is the more generic one. These are specialized forms, so you can represent it with this particular notation, and that's called is a relationship of inheritance, right? So there's another relationship, make a normal association, like a operating theater associate with some doing some surgeries or something, they associate with the surgical department, they have this relationship also, right? So the main thing is you need to remember this aggregation, association, how this inheritance work in class diagrams. So any questions up to here? Right? Any questions? Right, any questions? So this is the inheritance. So in terms of inheritance, this is the just extended version. But I have told you one thing. Method inheritance method you need to have the whatever the properties and the methods, right? Method properties and methods. And I told you inheritance method there could be, there can be properties or methods, right? Like method properties so because from the inheritance they can inherit these properties and methods from the superclass. May compartment they can be empty. In special scenarios, because you don't have to declare the thing, you just can inherit the things from the superclass or the superclass department, right? So at that moment, these two compartments are empty, right? So this is the same thing. Finding the superclasses need abstract thinking, domain knowledge is helpful. So generalization, specialization. So right. Right, the association relationship on class diagram. So the department they employs or uses one particular doctor, right? So doctor uses department, department also uses doctor. Department also uses doctor, and the relationship is loose. So every time like you can represent it with this particular single like line, right? This is called the association, and this is the aggregation. Right. This is more specific than association. Represent the part of relationship. It can occur when a class is a collection of container of other classes, but where the contained classes do not have a strong life cycle depending on the container, especially if the container is destroyed, its content are not graphically represented at a hollow diamond shape on the containing class and end of the tree with a single line that connect to the contained class on the contained class. So this is just how you need to represent. Basically, hospital has a department, faculty has a department, country has a capital, every country has a capital, right? So you can represent it with this abbreviation, that particular form of association. Every time you note that, hospital or either the faculty from that particular side has, like you say has, that means from this particular side you need to denote it with this particular hollow diamond symbol. So the closer title composition relationship. And again, we have the association, we have the aggregation, and then we have on the very top level, we have this relationship called the composition. And this is more specific than the aggregation. Usually has a strong life cycle dependency between instance of the container class and instance of the contained classes. If the container is destroyed, normally every instance that is contained is destroyed as well. So this is how you need to represent the like composition. Like I'm going to say the one example. Hospital has a department, right? So they have a relationship. So think about a hospital. Ownership hospital has some ownership over the department. So think about these are two separate entities, right? Hospital department oh sorry. I mean, in theoretically, hospital like for the entire hospital, that means like especially the department, can they function? Right? Department at least they can function, right? So that is this because without a hospital, even a one single department they can independently work. වැඩ කරන්න පුළුවන් function වෙන හරි විදිහට පුළුවන්. So this is relationship is kind of weak, right? So that is why you are denoting this hollow diamond symbol. And the composition එකදී වෙන්නේ මෙතන හිතන්න house has rooms කියන එක. ගෙදරකට කාමරයක් තියෙනවා. Assume hospital is a complex funded by the government. Just a normal assume it is my house. There's fire and everything burned, right? So what happens is house has rooms. At that moment, what will happen? Can the room be independently exist without the house? No, right? So the relationship is these two are not dependent on each other. That means like it's called the composition. A composition එකේදී මෙන්න මෙතන මේ diamond එක entirely කළු පාට කරනවා. That is called the composition. And in terms of class diagrams එක ඇත්තටම it's like very minimum that you are getting that, right? ඒක හරිම අඩුවෙන් එන්නේ. So this is called the composition. So this is the same example, right? Again, this is the multiplicities, provide business rules, invaluable in DB design, even in the database design, you may have learned about the cardinality. This is somewhat same to that. So, right. So multiplicities of the class diagram, an object of one card. It actually says object of one particular class relates to how many objects of the other classes. Basically, one hospital can have one to many departments. Minimum is one. Maximum is many. And department, at least it should be attached to the one department. Maybe, when you are designing that, at any moment you guys can make necessary assumptions. Right? So on the other hand, department, as I mentioned, one department can at least need to have one to many තිබ්බේ මෙතන තියෙන one. So one to many, and doctor can be attached to minimum one to maximum 4 department, because otherwise if they have more workers from 4 department, they will get tired, right? So that's how the multiplicities is defined. So the class diagram. Right. Any questions up to this point? So just assume a relationship, just a normal association between a car and a person, right? How we define the multiplicity? කොහොමද ඒක define කරන්නේ? A person can have how many cars? Zero to many. Right? And on the other hand, car can be owned by how many owners? At least one, right? That is the normal rule in Sri Lanka, right? So by one person. That is how you need to define the multiplied city. Right? Is it clear? And on the other hand, something like this. Mom and Amina will be giving a sentence, one particular sentence, right? A person likes to sleep. Is it the association, abbreviation, or the composition? What are the relationship there? A person likes to sleep here. What kind of relationship is there? Association. Yes, Divinita. Association. Shamin, right? Yes. There's no relationship is there, right? Person likes to speak, can I will like to know. Right? It's not an object. I mean, like, if you want to know, maybe like if you are using some kind of speech like a kind of application, and then for relationship will have been, right? And then they are using some kind of theory. You can notification and you can get a new camera. You need to check whether there's a noun is there. Noun they have a very noun for that thing. Speech can I speech can work that. So just something that we do, right? Make a current power which can take a mind. Amulet. You can have a relationship. And that moment there's an association relationship. Right? So that's how it is happening. And on the other hand, make but whether not multiplicities are meaningless for inheritance relationship. Right? Normal association, aggregation, the composition, you can have this multiplicities of the relationship formula, how they related to each other, but for the inheritance, you don't have to declare that particular thing. Right? Right. So now we have example class diagram for the hospital management system. So that we have done in earlier weeks. So you can see how it basically works. So I have attached separate diagrams for the LMS. So just see whether you guys can understand this. Right? A patient details class diagram. So this is for the patient details class diagram, right? So I assume everyone can see. So here you have the entity notation here ඕනම නැහැ. මෙන්න මේ notation එක. So that is some obsolete method. Method තියෙනවා class name එක, right? A patient. Patient can be two varieties, basically private patient and public patient, right? අපි ඔක කරා මම හිතන්නේ කලින් week එක. And every person basically is patient is a person, right? If you are taking a person, right? So there are attributes. What are the attributes that you have can be taken? අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම මොකක් හරි person කෙනෙක් නා. Especially අමලක මේ class diagram කරන මුලින්ම කරන්න ඕන. You have to keep the record every record in the database. Database එකේ record එකක් තියාගෙන you have to have the primary key and also primary key and on the other hand this the foreign key. So if it is primary key, there should be unique ID should be there, right? If it is person, you can see first name, last name, date of birth is there, right? And on the other hand, then may details හැමදේම class එකකට object එකකට දාලා you need to store that in the database. So what are the methods that you can have, right? What are the methods that you can have? Create, have you heard that? CRUD applications. You could call it CRUD applications. Create, read, update, and the delete. Record එක create කරන්න පුළුවන්, record එක read කරන්න පුළුවන්, record කරන්න එක. ඒ කියන්නේ system එකට enter කරාට පස්සේ you can update the record and after that you can delete the record, right? So think about the person. First name, last name, just from your whatever the common sense, you can derive what are the attributes that the particular person have, right? Then after that, you can derive the method. Person director, create person. Maybe like modify the person details, right? Change the person, and also maybe like if it is associated with the date of birth particular attribute, like especially when it is medical, calculate the age and the get maybe like get person details, set person details, any method you can have. Like you can make assumptions and you can put it there. And the thing is, importantly, on the top, all the attributes, before all the attributes, I have the deduction mark. And on the other hand, in terms of the operations of the method, I have the plus mark. Why is that? Yes, plus minus denominator. So these are like first name, last name, date of birth, okkama like it does have the private access modifiers, right? Like public things, private things likewise that. And all these methods are basically public. So whenever objects like separate outside object access it to the internals of this particular object, they have to go through the public public methods available in the interface like create person, change person, and the calculate person. On the other hand, method may have this sema. So you have this property. Say property can pass a colon you guys can you need to tell like this. So this is the correct version of diagram. So you can see I just uploaded to the LMS. Plus key method plus, and after that you have the followed by colon and the type of the variable. So that is a good practice. The variable name Java is string. right? City string, division string, so name, position, likewise that. So you can see, right? Even like there's a practice to like මේ method එකකට මොනවා හරි parameters තියෙනවා you guys can even name that, and after that you can like followed by a colon, you can like say the whatever the return type, whether it is integer or string or something like that. So we don't need to complex anymore. So so this is how we need to know the simply the class diagrams, right? ඒක හොඳට මතක තියාගන්න. So because that is not in the my lecture notes, right? And on the other hand, there's an aggregation relationship. A person has an address, right? And also person has a mobile phone or smart mobile device. So don't care about this particular arrowhead notation here. And there's a patient. If a patient if it is a patient management system, in order to uniquely identify, there's a patient ID. There's a patient ID, right? And maybe Medicare card, emergency contact. So based on the case study, you can derive what are the attributes that you can have, and maybe like a public method like get patient details, done that time, get patient details, set patient details, modify patient details. So just you can derive like that, right? And on the other hand, a patient can be a private to the public. So here, if it is a private patient, that means like he will be having the insurance from the outside company, like insurance company, data started, date of inquiry of the insurance, level of the cover, something like that, you can put there. And whenever you are not sure, you can have the notes here, right? So the address, like the street number, like everything is there, create the address, like modify the address, something like, so phone, maybe like SIM, phone number, phone tag, and there are methods like there, right? So is it clear how you need to draw the class diagram? In the class diagram, so this is like this is I'm just showing the example. So that is based on the case study that you are given, right? Case study you can do not take case study came over. You have to derive that. Right? And this is staff details class diagram. Right? Just have a look on the diagram. So this is the class diagram for the staff details. So you have the staff, and there are two types of staff in the hospital, doctor and the nurse. So basically they have an inheritance relationship, right? So staff. So the first thing that you need to derive is mukadda unique identifier employee ID. If it is like employee, of course the date of like they join, maybe like tax number, and also like whether he's a member of the UPF, EPF, you guys can have like a attribute right? And the level and like staff details, get the staff details, set the staff details, and maybe like create the staff, maintain the staff profile. So these are the methods that you can have. Method tonight, but from the common sense you can like at least think about the system. Meaningful method you can have, right? And in terms of doctor, so and the nurse, right? So even when it's come to the medical nurse, like there are three: general, midwife, surgical. So that's why you have this note and get nurse details. Maybe like get the nurse type. Maybe like some other methods that you can derive, right? And maybe like අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම doctors like they will be doing OT, right? ඒගොල්ලෝ වැඩ සරලකේ වැඩිම ගානක් හම්බ කරන්නේ doing overtime. So calculate the OT, maybe like keep the record. So these are the methods that you can have, right? System එකක් ගත්තාම අන්න එහෙම හිතන්න ඕන. And when it's come to the doctor, yes, I mean like they always think about MBBS qualification. So you can have the qualification, MD, and likewise that specialization area, registration number, SL, NCA Medical Council registration number, and the check the availability, check the specialization, get the doctor details, set the appointment. So there are so many methods that you can think, right? And in terms of surgeon, there's a surgeon and the PCN. They can surgeon can be the one who is doing the operation and things, right? So based on that, you can think about the thing. So here, as I have already mentioned to you, this compartment, at least they can be empty. Empty one because of this inheritance relationship. So he can inherit all these attributes to here, and you have this get patient details method over here, public method. So it is always best to use this encapsulation or data hygiene concept when you are making the diagram. So these are the things that you have to remember, right? So yeah, and there's a special form of inheritance. It's called the abstraction and the interfaces, right? So I mean like what will be happening in there when you have an abstract class? So yes, abstract class abstract. Class එක abstract විදිහට නම් කරොත් that particular abstract and class can have abstract methods along with the concrete methods. දැන් මොකද concrete methods කියන්නේ? ඒක මම ඉන්නහනේ පාරණේ කියන්නේ concrete method එක කියලා global Java method එක. Right? Abstract method එකක් කියන්නේ public is abstract කියලා ඒ method sorry ඒ කියන්නේ method එකේ body එක නැතුව you have to declare the method. Right? And through the inheritance super class එකට ඒ abstract method එක override කරන්න පුළුවන්. Right? And on the other hand, when it comes to interfaces, Java the interfaces interfaces can only have 100% abstract method. A method වල කිසිම body එකක් නැහැ. Right? That methods are like A method වල කිසිම body එකක් නැහැ. Right? So whenever through the inheritance, the nearest subclass they have to provide the implementation. ඒ කියන්නේ මොන වෙලාවක හරි public class dog extend to animal interface එකට ඔයාලට extend කරනකොට වෙන්නේ you have to provide the implementation details for all these methods. That's called the interfaces. And here that is also applicable to this class diagrams also. එතකොට වෙන්නේ මෙන්න මේ class diagram එකේ. So this is the inheritance, right? ඔයාලට මේක I'm pretty sure that I'm like sure, like for your case, like when you are making the mini projects or something, probably you won't be doing the abstract classes. So it depends. For the industry level project, so when you are doing, of course you have to use the abstract classes and these interfaces. So even the class diagram entity but when doctor in a class abstract class you have to use abstract keyword. Otherwise, if it is interface, when the interface will not right? That is the thing. So if it is abstract classes, interface interface can have, they can have some like abstract methods, right? When the method message so public, whatever the instant variables are there, right? Interface cannot have that because interface you cannot create objects from the interface. So that means all these public abstract methods are there. So basically they have to implement in here, right? So that will be really complex. So yeah. Yashisha kohamat kara interface kiyanaka. So that's how it works in the class diagrams. So there's another diagram that you have to be familiar with. So this is the same thing. Alright. Now we have done the class diagram. So this is the object diagram. So just see that how it is working. So here you have a class diagram, just a simple class diagram and just a normal association is there. A person with the company, person owns the stock in the company, basically in the stock market, right? So if you take one particular person, from the person's perspective, that person can have many company stocks, right? On the other hand, company stock, like it can be belong to one to many persons, many persons because there will be joint accounts or something like that, right? So this is how it is happening. The relationship is many to many, right? So this is the class diagram and this is just the object diagram. The object diagram, okay? So it's the same thing. You have two compartments over here. So the person, you can have a one instant John, right? Name method, so it's equal to John. So that means like he's belonging to this one particular company, right? So you can see one person can be belong to many companies. Again, so this is the example. So he have this this particular company as well as this IBM company. On the other hand, if you take this one particular IBM company, I mean like the stocks are owned by more than one, I mean like many people, right? So if it is a class diagram, and that is how you need to derive the object diagram. Just simple, right? ඒක බලකු දෙයක් කරන්න නෑ. You just need to I mean like attribute එකක් දුන්නාම ඒ attribute එකට දාලා you just need to derive the whatever the value, and maybe like using this association just direct some kind of line, that's all. And there's another example, really simple example for object diagram. A country, right? Every country has a capital, right? Lanka capital is right? So a country has a capital. Has a you can have the aggregation, right? So country name and the capital city name. So this is the object diagram. මොකක්ද attribute එකක් නම් what is the value? Country එකට නම Canada, so has capital Ottawa. Canada I don't know, France වල නම් Paris, Senegal මොකක් හරි අපිට රටක් තියෙනවා. Dhaka මම ඒක නම් දන්නේ නැහැ. So yeah, that's how it is basically that you need to derive the object diagram. Even in your exam paper, if I ask you to like based on a class diagram, derive the object diagram, I will be giving you that kind of like a huge complex diagram. So the thing is, only I'll be giving this kind of simple example. So based on that, you need to draw a simple object diagram, right? So any questions up to here? Any questions up to this point? So there are a few case studies, maybe like you guys can, when you are getting ready for the exam, you can do it by USA. So any questions? Right. If you have no questions, we can wind up the session now. Right, so just I was kidding, so class continue karna, so yeah. Right, it started from the very simple, question. So you guys can try to answer the question number 2. I hope everyone can read it. Dog class and cat class inherit from the basically the animal class, right? As both dogs and cats are animals, draw a class diagram. You can also think about the inheritance and the abstract concepts. Make sure you declare the private and the public, whatever the method correctly, right? just be realistic. I mean, like that. And you were very keyword. I mean, that's how to the copy level or other. Yes. So how to think about that? Like an animal getting captured, who's a runner than a window. I mean, like we have this serial powering, I mean, like man runners, then TV, after border, like there are, I mean, like lot of kind of, I mean, type of the animal, right? That can be a one attribute, type, and maybe like the uh, huh? Down here, I think. Oh, car. Oh, my car, common amount. Age කියන එකක් ගන්න පුළුවන් හැබැයි something like that, right? And you have this public again methods. These are common for all easily, and I have like method very method මේ column එකක් එක void කියන එක unknown return anything කියලා ඒ විදිහට නම් කරා. So this is a inheritance relationship, and here this is the type. Cat කියනකොට I mean that cat can basically inherit the properties from this animal class. It can type, color, age කියන ඒ හැම දෙයක්ම they are kind of along with that. I have seen some discriminant type the breed. They can breed in Persian cats in the past. There are more cats, and in terms of dog, we can take the breed also. And on the other hand, there are some separate methods. Who set na put a miogan pulang, you can submit a pulang, it was a dog na, but so this is how to derive just a normal class diagram, right? Right. So the third one, you can affect third one. A rectangle class and a circle class implement the shape interface. It's an interface, right? Which declares a get area method. Rectangle get area. Area can right? So calculate and draw a class diagram. Right? So this is the interface, right? Common interface how you need to draw an interface. Shape interface and you have this stereotype notation interface here, right? The calculate get area, to calculate the area, right? Area calculate so sorry, this notation and this formula for k as the width and for the circle it's pi r, right? So 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 this is how you just have a basic get area. A public method in the shape interface. Again, abstract method right? Abstract method you don't have to separate the other method over here in the super classes. May inheritance second, right? This is the circle and this is the this is the triangle and this is the circle and hence and the width he can manipulate or he can implement the method to calculate the area, right? So height and the width, and in terms of radius, it's 5 and 2 to the power r. So that means that he can calculate the area as per his need. So you don't have to explicitly declare the get area method over here. Method separately because this is an interface. Make compartment can be empty here and I'm using the set of interfaces, right? Is it clear? Ega ternada? Chihan ternada? Eh prashna ternada kare. Ternada? Ei prashna ternada. Now you may try to answer the question 1, right? Basically, members can register, search for books, borrow them, and return them. Each book can be borrowed by only one member at a time. So, noun sticker, right? Can be borrowed only one member at a time. The librarian is responsible for managing the books, book records, including adding new books, updating details, and removing the books when removed. There are three nouns are there. So there are three classes. And apart from that, have I method have a class? I mean, have to take another class. Right? Look at that. පොත ගන්නවා පොත අරගෙන ඊට පස්සේ පොත අරගන්නවා ඊට පස්සේ පොත ගන්නකොට මොකද වෙන්නේ පොතට දෙනවා like issue කරන එක need to have a date that you will determine the book ඒ ඔක්කොම report කරගන්න මොකක් කරන්න තියෙනවා අන්තිමට you will have a class So what will happen is normally when you are borrowing a book, when you are taking a book outside, figures. So when you are taking a book outside, so the librarian will keep a record either on an Excel or some kind of ledger book, right? So I assume I will learn just fine, so they have this kind of some kind of ledger book, right? So you are proposing a system, right? Develop an online system. A system propose system propose you need to keep that whatever the data in the ledger book in some kind of online data store or some kind of database. In order to do so, the first thing that you need to do is database. So it's better, like in order, that means you are keeping the transaction data. So what I am asking is, yes, there are three nouns. Librarian, it was a member, there are groups, and even some people, they can take the library as entity, I don't mind. And on the other hand, in order to keep the whatever that particular transaction data, issue date, like the date that you are again receiving the book, maybe the calculate the fine based on the issue date taken last down value of fine data calculate for all that, we need to have a separate class. So it's better to like a transaction data, like someone has taken some kind of a database kind of thing, or like transaction database, and they even a class right? That is the most important thing. There should be another class like this. Library you can take that, but it is not necessary. And in between this member, librarian, book, and the book transaction, you guys can justify that there's an association. That's what I'm expecting, right? Library good. Mulima system a found the data migrate system database. So you guys need to create an object or some kind of class, right? That's the thing. So yeah, I still have 2 minutes. Yes. So, yeah, I have another lecture that's right. Right. So, I just don't want to make things complex. But a complex diagram I'm here in the back. So, this is the diagram. Right? So, there's a book, and also the library is there, and the borrow transaction is there, and also member. So there's an inherited relationship is there between the borrow transaction and the librarian, right? Mokada, that ledger book it will be owned by, it will be we can try this person on the librarian. And you can see on the book side, in that particular class, a book has a unique ID and I may be public. Anyone make a public public because there are 2 other objects are accessing outside. key, get the order details, is available. So these are the public methods that are accessible. And on the other hand, librarian side, librarian ID, maybe employee ID, name. So the get name and the get written is there. So the borrow transaction, that is the unique one that I've been talking about. Transaction ID, borrow date, written date, maybe with the time span, and then get the borrow date and the written get the written date. Maybe here you can have another method like public method like calculate the fine. In that way, calculate the fine and calculate if the whatever the person who borrowed that, if he is written in that booklet. So there are so many things that you can derive, right? And here's the member ID, name, email, and get name. And apart from that, set the name, maybe update the email. So many things, right? So not the one thing. So is it clear that they know that how to draw that class diagrams? Borrow transaction के लिए हम एक इंग्लिश से ना गया ना लेकर तेकर associate में ना right A or C he can take the book ID as A that's why